Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Now Teach Career Change webinar. My name's Talia, and I'm the Career Change lead here at Now Teach. And behind the scenes, I've got Phoebe, and she's doing our tech and keeping everything running smoothly. And I also have the rest of the team here who are our team of career change specialists, and they're behind the scenes ready to answer your questions as they come up in the Q&A box. So we're all part of the team here at Now Teach, and I'm really pleased to be here talking to all of you, and that we'll all hear from our guest speaker, Matt, who will introduce himself properly in a few minutes. And also on our panel with me, I've got Steph, who is also from the team here at Now Teach, who helps run our programme. She'll be here at the end, and she'll be able to take some questions on what it's like to be on Now Teach and how we are working really hard to support career changes in what's a really big shift in your working lives. So here at Now Teach, we are here to support you through this whole process, wherever it is you are in that process. We've got lots of expertise on hand today, and also lots of expertise on hand in the coming weeks and months to help you make that transition in your career and help you make it as smooth and as informed as possible. So to make sure we can answer all of your burning questions, please do type them into the Zoom Q&A tab. To avoid confusion, this is the box labeled Q&A, it's not the box labeled chat, and our team are there to answer your queries. And we'll answer some of those in the Q&A box, and then we'll put some to myself and to Steph and to Matt at the end. So we'll have a bit of a hybrid way of doing that. We'd also love to know a little bit more about you and what you want to hear about. So please, could you complete these polls? They're going to pop up on your screen in just a second. And once everybody has managed to do that, so today's event is all about how Now Teach can support you through your career change. And Now Teach, we want to see a world where children benefit, because there's talented people like yourselves who've already had successful careers, become teachers, and are able to bring their skills and experiences into schools and into the schools that need them most. And to do that, we attract and recruit experienced people to career change into teaching in state schools. We support Now Teachers, training providers, schools, and the whole wider education system to realise the full potential of career changes in education. So we won't be able to cover every aspect of this today, but we do have an hour to tackle some key bits and delve into a bit deeper into the process as well. So there's no better way to learn about what it is to be a Now Teacher than to hear directly from the cohort themselves.
So I spent 30 years as a marketer.
I was a journalist and an author.
I was an investment banker.
I'd had a catering business for almost 30 years.
I've had a military career and then worked in consulting, and then I went into teaching.
I really felt like, okay, I've got like 10, 15 years left of working.
What should I do that makes me feel like I want to get out of bed every morning?
I found the retirement decision was a difficult decision to make.
I wanted to give back.
I wanted a challenge.
It's never too late to change careers. It's never too late to do something new. Let's give it a shot and see what happens.
My husband said, oh, at last, because I'd been talking about it for years.
People telling me, you're really courageous, which I think in Britain is code for you're crazy.
The thing about us as career changers is you're bringing to the school environment a unique set of experiences that can only be valuable to their children.
Everybody's starting from scratch.
Every month you look back and feel, God, I've got a little bit better.
The kids are hilarious. You really are very funny.
I feel fully alive. I have purpose.
It's the most rejuvenating thing I could possibly imagine doing. I can see the impact that I make on a day-to-day basis, knowing that I'm helping these kids prepare themselves for the future.
So special thanks to the Now Teachers who gave up their time to make that film, and I'm sure you'll agree that it's just really valuable to hear from people that are already in the network. And next, I'm going to play you a message from one of our co-founders, Lucy Kellaway. Lucy herself was a career changer and really understands the unique benefits and also the challenges of career changing.
Hello, I'm Lucy Kellaway. I'm the co-founder of Now Teach. I'm delighted to welcome you today. Really pleased that you are interested possibly in becoming a teacher. I set up this organisation together with Katie Wargrave 4 years ago because I suspected that there were people maybe like you and definitely like me back then who were tired of their old careers and who wanted to do something more useful with their lives. It seemed to me that there was this huge waste of talent of people who had lots of experience of the world in general and wanted to become teachers, but nobody was helping them. Nobody was saying, yes, you know, the profession needs people like us and here's how you do it. So that was 4 years ago. I have now been teaching myself for 4 years. Look, it's been hard. Everybody said to me at the time, this will be the hardest thing you've ever done. I didn't believe them, but my goodness, they were right. But it was also, you know, if I wanted to do something useful, which I did, nothing could be more useful than this. Every single day that you're a teacher, even on a bad day, you leave school knowing that children know something that they didn't know that very morning. And that was because of the effort that you have made. So what could be more rewarding than that? Teaching isn't for everybody. Of course I know that. And maybe you're wondering whether it's for you. Well, I mean, the only ultimate test is sort of try it and see. But I can give you a couple of pointers, because obviously we don't want loads of people who are going to start doing it who then drop out. But I think there are two really important motivations. And if you have both of them, then this really might be right for you. The first one is that you yourself want to learn something new. You want to push yourself. You want the challenge of this. And that's a sort of selfish motivation, but my goodness, it will help you in the dark days in the January of your first year. But the other motivation is just as important. You need to want to do this for the sake of your students. If you have both of those, this really might be for you. But there are a couple of extra things too. You will be surrounded by teenagers all day long. If that doesn't excite you, then it's been very nice to meet you, but goodbye. Equally, you need to want to spend all day thinking about the subject that you're going to teach. You need to find it really interesting, because if you're not interested in it, neither will they be. Lots of other people will talk to you as you go through this about what we can offer, but in the end, we will help you find the right teacher training program for you, and in the end, we offer you each other. We all want to do the same thing. We all want to become better teachers, and nothing makes me as co-founder happier than that you are out there watching this video thinking maybe teaching would be the right thing for you. I hope it really is, and I hope to meet you one day.
So as I mentioned previously, that was Lucy, and she is one of our co-founders. So thank you, Lucy, for taking the time to record that message. And that leads us on really nicely, as I now want to hand over to one of our cohort members, Matt, who is still right in the thick of teaching and has some brilliant insights into what it's like to be part of Now Teach. So Matt, welcome, and thanks for being here, and I'll let you take it from here.
Okay, thank you very much. First of all, welcome everyone. Like I said, my name is Matt, and I'm currently based up in the northeast of England in Scarborough, and I'm teaching physics. My background was operations management. That came from doing an engineering degree 20 years ago, and then getting into the food industry on a very successful graduate program. I had a very successful career for about 15, 16 years. Developing all the way through kind of operations. So in the end, I was the person who would design, build and run big manufacturing sites. And you do the kind of role for every 5-6 years, then you move on. And towards the end of the last one, it got to the point where I really wasn't enjoying what I was doing. I didn't kind of get that for the fulfillment. Each day was quite monogamous, quite the same. There's I felt I wasn't valued for what I was doing. Yes, financially it was very, very good, but it was literally live by the sword, die by the sword. What I did today was forgotten tomorrow, and I just felt I wasn't able to kind of make a difference, if that makes sense, be beyond that. So as I came to the end of one of my positions, I sat down with my brother-in-law and we were looking and said, okay, what are your big successes? And as I talked through them, it was all about people. Like most of the management team, most of the people who I was surrounded by, people I developed through work, from apprentices to all manner of stuff. And they're the things I remember, and they're the things I really got the most enjoyment out of. And that's what I look back on as why I recall as my successes. So from there, it kind of then became a bit of a no-brainer. I need to do something around developing people. And I did look at teaching when I was much younger, but because I got into this graduate scheme, I kind of never went back to it. And you know how you get stuck into a career and a routine, and obviously financially it works, and you just kind of, next thing you know, 10, 15 years have gone. And with COVID happening, I was doing a lot of home tutoring at the time as well, with my kids, and then their boyfriends, girlfriends, and next thing I knew, I had about 10 kids around there on the kitchen table at one point, to teach them maths, physics, and English, etc. And I was getting a real passion at that. So myself and my wife sat down, we kind of talked it. And that's something you've really got to do. You've got to sit down with the family and then discuss it, because it does have big implications, one on yourself, the family around you, as well as like the financials and things like that. And we said, look, let's give it a go. I've got to say, it's been one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life. If I look at where I am now, even though, as Liz says, it is tough and it is hard, I absolutely love what I do. And even on the bad days, I still go home and smile and look back and reflect and enjoy it. So I started my teaching training this year, since September last year. Prior to that, I took the opportunity to do a little bit of work in schools, being a TA. If that's probably something I would advise, just to go next to schools, even something like an experience day. I mean, I managed to do 3 before I did any interviews, just to get a feel for what a school looks like. I mean, last time I was in school was 20 years ago. So you get to understand what school feels like. And what you start to realise, I've posted to all career changes, you don't realise how much you've got to offer. The skills that you use every day, whether it's communication, whether it's maths, whether it's English, etc., is you do it so much, and you can offer children and students a lot of that. For example, even just as a TA, I was tutoring year 11s for their GCSEs. I was getting involved with careers advice, helping year 11s with apprenticeship applications, and then special needs students, etc. And now I'm in my training year. The skills around communication, around how you present yourself, how you can control emotions. Now, you've been doing this in your careers for a long time, and those skills are absolutely fantastic, and they really set you apart within the teaching community. So I started my teaching training last year in September. I've just moved schools to what we call a diversity school, because half the training's in one school, then I move to another school, and then I go back to my original school at the end. I'm doing it through a teaching alliance in Scarborough. It's predominantly based in school, and I've worked being at Hull University doing a PGC with that. And it's really good because you get that kind of hands-on experience in the classroom with the kids, and that's the real thing. I mean, I've done presentations to hundreds of people before, but when you're stood in the classroom in front of 30 students for that first time, it is absolutely nerve-wracking. Even now, I still get butterflies in my stomach when I first go in the classroom. That's it's good because you really care about it, and that's one of the biggest things I've had to learn in the last couple of months. It's where I thought, I should just present, and I've done that before. You put someone on the screen, talk about it. It really isn't. It's about engaging. It's about getting the students to come to try and get out of them what's in their heads, and then how you can build on that to, like I say, is make them leave that classroom with something they didn't know when they came in. And that's a real skill that you develop over time. And as you do that, what I found is you can be you as well. You can bring your personality to it. You can bring your style to it. And the children really, really respond to that and really see you as a human. And this is where your skills in industry really come forward, because that's what allows you to do it. In terms of the training, a lot of people will worry about subject knowledge. What you find is you've got areas of expertise, and there's lots of support available to develop that. I did a subject knowledge enhancement course as part of the early days, which was really useful around when I first started my training. But to be fair, a lot of subject knowledge you actually develop as you teach. When I talk to teachers now, I was talking to one this morning actually about a physics module. He'd been teaching 10 years and he wasn't 100% with it. So you're learning all the time. And that's one of the big things about the role, is the opportunity to keep learning every day, keep developing yourself, which, to be fair, I didn't quite have in my previous career. The Now Teach network has been absolutely fantastic from day one. Even before, when I first started applying for roles, I went to, we had like seminars around how to do the interviews, how to do the lesson plans. And then since then, we've had lots of different webinars, chats, and Steph is my mentor, and we're able to sit there and talk about any issue, any challenges. I mean, I've recently just secured a permanent position in the School of Math, and we've had a long chat before the interview about what's in the hows and how to approach it. And that network and support is absolutely invaluable. And through that, you realise what you can actually offer. I mean, I'm part of a Now Teach WhatsApp group with science teachers. There's got to be over 100 members. It's fantastic. I can ask any question anytime, and I know I'll get 15 to 20 responses to support me through everything I'm doing. I won't lie, the journey, it's a hard journey. You're learning a lot of skills from scratch, as well as trying to do the academic side of it, which, especially when you've been out for so long, it's a bit of a steep learning curve, because obviously you've got to write an essay, and I've written an essay for 20 years, but the support's there with Now Teach, with your provider, with the schools, and don't be put off by that. But I've got to say, it's so rewarding. I mean, when I've been out of school, even just for a week on a training course or looking at another school, you walk back in and the kids are like, "Where have you been? Where have you been? We've missed you, we've missed you." And that's what you want. And you don't realise how much of an impact you have in their lives, supporting them every day, just touching base with them. And you've got to think about teenagers from 11 to 16-year-old, they change so much during that time. And to see them grow and develop and the different relationships you build. I mean, for example, with my year 11 and year 10s, they're like young adults, and you can have that really kind of adult conversation. And there's a bit of, there's that kind of bit of banter there you can have with them. And then you've got the year 7s, which are 11-year-olds from our primary, who, they almost idolize the teachers, and they really engage with what you're talking about, and you can really open the minds to things. So for me, making a decision like this, and where I was where you are now, probably just over a year ago, it is a very daunting decision and a very daunting thing to think about. But I've got to say, for me, and with many of the teachers I've spoken to through Now Teach, and in people I've met in the industry, it's one of the best decisions I've ever made. And the support that you get through the Now Teach program and all the training providers now is absolutely fantastic. I've seen many training programs and many support networks in industry, and I've got to say, I've never seen it's quite as good as what I've seen here. Okay, I'll pass back to you, Natalie, if that's all right.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you very much. So thank you, Matt, for sharing your story. It's really useful to hear about the experience firsthand, especially for someone like yourself who's benefited from Now Teach support and has just been able to thrive in the classroom as a teacher. So now you've heard from Matt, I'm going to speak to some of the more logistical things and also the type of things that Now Teach can support you with. So shortly we're going to delve into the Q&A part of the session, and that means we'll get to answer the questions from you. But first, there are some questions which always come up, so I want to just preempt those and ensure that you're getting all that crucial information up top. So Matt, you can take a breather, and then you and Steph will speak to some of the questions that are coming through on the Q&A. So everyone on this call today will be at a slightly different point in the thinking. We understand that you really need a bespoke approach to support, but there are some questions that everyone has in common. So firstly, people want to know, how do you become a teacher with Now Teach? So first of all, just a quick overview about how we can support you into teaching at Now Teach. So to reiterate, we don't run a teacher training programme, we support career changes as you transition to teaching, and you remain part of our Now Teach network throughout your entire career as a teacher. And we do this in 3 ways. So firstly, our career change specialist will support you with your initial teacher training application, whether that's advising you on the DFE Apply service, or helping you to secure interviews through our partners, or coaching you on the interview process itself. So Joe, Rachel, Wendy and Phoebe and the team are really well equipped to support people who are changing career at that kind of mid to later stage. Secondly, once you have secured a training place, our programme team support you during the first 2 years. So that's your teacher training and your first year as a qualified teacher. So Steph, who is with us today, is part of that team, and I know that she's going to be more than happy to speak to what that looks like a little bit later on. And thirdly, you also become part of the Now Teach network of hundreds of career changers, and they're there to share their learning and share their experiences with you as you train, and then for the rest of your career as a teacher. I know Steph will agree with me that Now Teachers say this is one of the best aspects of what we do, and it's the community of people who are doing or have done just what you're doing. And we also, the next question we get is about what the process looks like. So there are 2 parts. We do an eligibility check in our expression of interest form, and then you complete a full registration by just submitting a statement about your motivation to teach in your career. If it looks like we're going to be the right fit to support you, we'll just invite you for a consultation, and we'll just chat a bit more about your motivations to teach, as well as some key competencies, and there will be a consultation outcome. And if you're proceeding on to next steps, you are invited to join Now Teach. We then support you in securing a training place with a training provider, and then you are on to the start of the training itself. So that brings me to, what are the different training routes? So at a very basic level, there are 2 main types of training program. There's university or school-based. With university-based, you will begin in a university setting, and you'll have things like lectures and seminars, and then you'll go on to complete 2 block placements at schools. With the school-based, you will be in school and you'll learn on the job from day one. You might come out of school, step out of school for 1 day a week, and you'll go into a different learning environment. But you are based in one school for the majority of the year, and you'll spend some time in another school, and that will be a contrasting school. And there are also 2 qualifications associated with teacher training. So there's the QTS, the qualified teacher status, and that's the qualification you require to teach in a school in England. And this is the key thing, this is what you need. And there's also the PGCE, which is probably one you've heard of, and that's the academic qualification. You get that from a university-based route, and you can also do it on a school-based route, but it's not compulsory. But the key things are, you can achieve QTS and become a teacher without a PGCE. The thing you need is the QTS. So our career change specialist will be more than happy to speak to you in more details about your options, and also how these options match up with your specific circumstances and what you're looking for. So, am I eligible? Our expression of interest form does check your eligibility, but just to highlight, there are some legal criteria for teacher training that you must meet. So there's Maths and English GCSE at C or above, options to take an exam if you don't have these, undergraduate honours degree, and further criteria for subject eligibility is variable depending on your training provider, but usually either an A-level degree or significant relevant experience in your chosen subject area will be required. And if you do have overseas qualifications, you can apply to a government body called ENIC for a statement of comparability. So they will check for you how your overseas qualifications match up. And at this point, I also will add a quick note on subjects. So at Now Teach, we support trainees across subjects where there tends to be more initial teacher training positions available. Our team can discuss which subjects will be the right choice for you based on your experience, your interests, and also your qualifications. There are shortages of teachers in particular subjects. That includes maths, physics, chemistry, modern foreign languages, and computer science. There are often more training options in these subjects, and they do also attract a higher government bursary, which brings me on nicely to finances. So changing career is a change of income for many, many people. So there are some government tax-free bursaries available. These vary, and the higher bursaries are, of course, for shortish subjects, and that's up to £27,000 for subjects like maths, physics, chemistry, and computing. They bring in the highest bursaries. Again, when thinking about your skills, your qualifications, and your experience, it'd be worth discussing that with your career change specialist, and we'll be able to help you and just see what the best fit all around for you would be. All trainees do pay tuition fees for their training year, whether that's on a university or a school route, or student loans are available. So £9,250, the equivalent of a year of university fees, plus maintenance loans. They're available too for living costs, and that does depend on your household income, up to £12,000. Once you gain your QTS, you will enter the normal teacher salary scale. And as a newly qualified teacher, you'll be given a salary of at least £25,000 outside of London, or that is higher in inner London at £32,000. So hopefully that information is really helpful for you. We are going to move on to some questions now, and I'm going to just kind of bring the panel in. So Steph, it's time to bring you in as well, and just wonder actually if you could just explain a little bit about what your role is in Now Teach, and a bit about the programme as well, and how you support Now Teachers.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi everyone, I'm Steph. I am one of the programme managers, as Talia says. So I'm part of a programme team of 6 people. On that team, we all have different specialisms, but we do pretty much all come from a teaching background. So when we're talking to you about your experience in school and coaching you through those first 2 years, it's coming from a place of experience. I've been with Now Teach for 12 months, and before that I've been in the classroom for 13 years. Across a different kind of range of schools and colleges and sixth forms. So kind of one of us within the team will always kind of have had a certain experience to be able to help you with whatever it is that comes up, and those experiences are quite diverse. In terms of what we do on the programme team, we have a structured programme of events across the year, which everybody has access to. And as Matt talked about a little bit, they are across a range of different subjects. But what we try to do is not just repeat the content that you're going to get in your teacher training. And in the ECF, we try to make it career change specific. So obviously the reason that Now Teach exists is to make the transition for career changes smoother. And so we might look at a topic such as behaviour, for example, which you will definitely be covering in your theory on your teacher training, and I'm sure it will come up time and time again, but we will look at kind of specific challenges for career changes with behaviour. And as Matt said as well, there's always that network of career changers who can give us their experience, their strategies, things that have worked, problems that they've faced. And so each year as that network grows, our experience and our kind of toolbox of strategies, as it were, grows with that network. So we have that programme of events through the year, and actually this year that's very much been evenings in the week. They've been online events, but next year we're moving towards 3 in-person events across the year, which we're hoping is going to kind of, as we grow nationally, is going to help people to kind of get together in person more. As Talia kind of mentioned earlier, the thing that people find really valuable is the network and having all those other people to talk to about what's going on and how it's similar for them and challenges that they're facing. So much more in-person stuff as we move towards next year. As well as those programmed events that are in right from the start of the year, then our offer is very bespoke and tailored to the needs of the teacher at the time that an issue might arise or a need occurs. So everybody will have their own programme manager, but that doesn't mean that you don't have access to the expertise on the rest of the programme team as well. And as kind of a minimum, there'll be a once a term check-in with your programme manager, and that might be a 10-minute call, half an hour call, or it might be much more than that. Some people use us a lot and come to all the events and are on the phone regularly and emails back and forth. Some people use us less, and I think really people don't tend to know how much they're going to need to use us until they're actually in the middle of that training year and that ECF, but we're always there to pick up the phone. Some of that tailored support might include external coaching, where we can fund a careers coach or a wellbeing coach. It might be that kind of just speaking to someone at Now Teach is not enough at certain points, and we want to bring in another voice to that conversation. Or it might be things even like voice coaching. So being in the classroom and as Matt said, speaking to 30 students, sometimes you find that kind of the power that you've had in your voice before, or conversations that you've had in meetings, it's a different kind of presenting, and certainly from kind of a behaviour point of view, what we don't want is everybody losing their voices trying to gain control of a class of 30 kids. So voice coaching actually has been a tool that some of our Now teachers have accessed in order to make sure that you're protecting your voice, and again, it's all about well-being. So the programme is varied, and it is very much in response to what you need at the time. But I think the two most valuable things are having the network there, as Matt said, and for us to be able to connect you with people who might be teaching your subject or who might live near you, might be with the same training provider and you don't realise that you're both Now teachers or career changers. And then also having that programme manager at the end of the phone as a third party. Sometimes things might happen that you don't want to talk to your mentor in school about or your training provider, and you just want kind of that non-biased advice or even just a vent, which often is useful as well if things are difficult. And we like to celebrate things as well. It's not all about the tough stuff. So we encourage Now teachers to phone us when they've got those job offers, as Matt did last week. And it's nice to be able to celebrate those exciting things as well.
Amazing, thank you, Steph. Right, so I'm going to go straight in with some questions. So we've had one question which I think I'm just going to address really quickly, which is about how Nina's asked, how do I schedule a call with someone? So what I will say is we are going to call everybody after this webinar that is on the call today, so that you have a chance to ask any of those kind of more personalised questions specific to your circumstances, and a career change specialist be able to kind of talk you through that. So Nina, Rachel is actually going to give you a call after this, and everybody else will also get a call from one of the career training specialists. So if there are any questions that you don't manage to ask here, or you don't feel like you want to ask in the Q&A box, that's absolutely fine. We can do that. If not, we can also kind of email you afterwards, or you can kind of make sure that you fill in an EOI and somebody will definitely get back to you. Okay, great. So Andrew's asked a really good question, which is ECF, what is that, please? So Matt, I wonder if you could just explain really briefly what it is and all that good stuff that they've got to look forward to in the ECF year.
Yeah, cool. Okay. So one thing I'll say is that teaching's full of acronyms. And
it is, yeah.
Get used to it. Okay. ETS is early career teacher. So what you do is you start as a trainee and you get your QTS, qualified teacher status, and then you have a 2-year, they call it apprenticeship, which we class as an early career teacher, ETS. Yeah, and during that time, schools where you work, for example, the one I'm going to be working at, I'll have a mentor to support me through that as well within the school, as well as obviously the support from Now Teach.
Perfect, thank you. Steph, I don't know if you wanted to add anything there, or
yeah, just that it has actually changed quite recently. So the ECF is relatively new, and in the past it was NQT, which was just 1 year of support after your training year. So this is kind of a move towards a more gradual I suppose, start to teaching, and that the support is in place for longer. So after your training year, where you get your QTS, there's the 2 years of ECF, as Matt was saying, and through those 2 years you'll have a reduced timetable. So in the first year of ECF you'll have a reduced timetable by 10%, and in the second year of ECF it'll be reduced by 5%. So that you've kind of got that gradual move towards teaching, and throughout that time you'll still have a mentor. The only other thing to say on that is that our Now Teach programme is funded for the first 2 years, so your training year and the first year of ECF. So the programme covers those 2 years, but as Talia said, you become part of the network, so you don't just kind of get cut loose at the end of those 2 years. You're very much still supported, and you're still invited to events, to the conference. You can still pick up the phone to us at any point if you want to.
Okay, perfect. So we have had quite a lot of questions actually on part-time options. So I'll start and just say that yes, there are some part-time options out there. It will depend on where you are and who you want to train with, but it's definitely a conversation worth having with a career change specialist, and also with your chosen training provider as well, and just seeing what's available. Steph, I don't know, you must have some experience of some Now teachers who are doing the part-time route. I wonder if you could just speak to how they're finding it, and kind of pros and cons and things like that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we do have a number of people doing it, and I think from next year onwards it's probably going to be more popular, because the National Institute of Teaching, which is kind of starting in September, isn't it, are putting on a part-time programme that has providers pretty much nationwide, so hopefully it's going to become more of an available offer. There are pros and cons to it. I think generally teachers who go into teaching part-time, when they actually get their first permanent job, I think that the pros outweigh the cons. So for those that can afford to kind of teach part-time, generally they find that it does work well for them. It helps them to find a balance between work and life, and that they can still do the things that they want to do. Potentially if people are moving towards retirement, part-time is more appealing than full-time. In terms of part-time training, again, availability is good, and it's becoming much more of a common thing. A couple of the challenges that people have faced with that this year particularly is just that progress is much slower, and for a career changer who's used to kind of being at the top of the game maybe in another career, slow progress can sometimes be quite frustrating. So if you're kind of comparing yourself to your peers who are doing the course full-time and are in school every day, and you're actually only in 3 days a week, for example, you find that you kind of have a little bit less consistency with your classes. So there might be a couple of weeks between seeing certain classes, or another teacher might have to pick up a session with that class on the days that you're not in. So it's definitely an option, and the people that we have had doing part-time have been very successful. But I know from a career change specific point of view that some people have found the kind of rate of progression a little bit frustrating, and so that's something we could probably discuss and work through before that training started, just to kind of manage those expectations and make sure that you're prepared for that.
Perfect, thank you. So I've had one really interesting question that I think I'm going to skip right to, and Matt, I was wondering if you could come in on this and just talk about any kind of opinions you have on this, or if there's other people in your cohort that you have talked to about this at all. And I think it's about it's about age. So someone's asked, realistically, is age an issue? This person is 62 and has had a full public and private sector career behind them. So I think it might be interesting to talk about, like, firstly, I think as part of that question is probably a bit about ageism, but also just about like maybe the pace of and like accessibility of the role as well. So Matt, I just wonder if you have thoughts on that.
Okay, I'll be honest with you. I'll be honest with you. I'm 40 to 42. And I've got someone else on my immediate cohort within my training provider who's just over 10 years older than me. From what I've spoken with them and I've spoken with other trainees, I've seen that age isn't necessarily an issue. It's kind of how you feel and how much energy you have. Regards to the actual positions and role, obviously, I spend a lot of time in school, which is probably about 8:30 till my school day finishes at 2:30, which is quite nice. Normally it's about 3 or 3:30. Just because my school starts a little bit early. But I normally do about 2 or 3, about 3 or 4 hours in on an evening, depending on what's going on. It's like it is in all careers. You have peaks and troughs. There's times when I'll be honest, you're flat out, and if you're doing the PGC with it as well, that adds that extra little bit of workload. But the nice thing is with that, for example, with mine, it comes in 3 assignments, which are quite nicely spaced out through the year. So I can use my, if you like, half-term time and end-of-term time to really kind of pick that up. One thing I would say is having worked with 2 schools and discussed a lot with other trainees, is the more open you are with your training provider and your mentors at school, they can help tailor how you take on lessons and support as well. So personally, I don't see age as a real obstacle. It's about how much energy you have and how much you want to put into it. Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Steph, I don't know if you want to come in on that at all. I know we do have kind of a range of ages on our cohorts. Any experience you have to share.
Yeah, I think I agree with Matt really, that I think it is what you make of it. And I think teacher training and teaching is hard. Like everybody is going to find parts of this hard, like aspects of this difficult. And I think it's probably not the case that as a 62-year-old you would find it more difficult than someone who might be coming in as a 22-year-old graduate. But you'll find different elements of it difficult. And I think what we find with our cohort is that a lot of the things that a 22-year-old graduate might find really difficult, career changers just have been doing that for years, and those skills are transferable. But actually there might be things that graduate comes in and finds quite easy that a career change has not really had to do in their career, and that it's different things that we have to look at. And I think again it's individual to everybody, but there are quite common trends really amongst our career change network of things that career changers find that little bit trickier. So I don't think they find it more difficult, I just think they find different things difficult.
Yeah, and I think career changes come in with kind of usually like a built-in gravitas that you just don't have when you're fresh out of university and you've never really had a job before and you're just starting out your career. So it is quite, it's different challenges, isn't it? And there's definitely advantages to being an older teacher as well. And I think that leads on quite nicely actually, Emma. I'm sure we knew this question was coming, but because there's so much about it in the press and stuff as well. So I'd love to hear more about work-life balance as a teacher and how is managing all that lesson planning and the marking as well.
Yeah. Okay, I'll be honest with you, I have a really good work-life balance. I'm able to pick my kids up from school. I've not done that ever, and that's one of the things I'm absolutely loving at the moment. I actually spending time with my children at night, and that was also part of the reason why I wasn't happy and wanted to change. What you've got to remember is when you're teaching in school, during those lessons, you are teaching to the kids and the students. The preparation for that needs to be done outside of that lesson. So as a trainee, for the first certainly term and a half, is you'll build up your lessons to about 50% of timetable, which works out around about just between 10 and 12 hours a week. So you've got a lot of time within school. You can then hone your planning skills, etc. To start off with, I'll be honest, I did find it quite tough. I think my first lesson took about 6 hours to plan, and even then it wasn't complete, just because it's just a totally new thing. Where now, realistically, I probably plan my lessons within an hour and a half, quite comfortably. So there's times when work-life balance is slightly out of kilt, where you might be under a little bit of pressure. Like Steph said, it might be an area which you're not familiar with, or it might be a particular topic you're not familiar with. And as part of that development of your knowledge around your topic and your specialism, you just need to put that a little bit more time into it. But there are other times, and I'll be honest, I'll use this week as an example for me. I'm coasting. I've got a topic which I've now taught 3 times. My lesson plans are really good. I'm able to spend, I've got a lot of my evenings free and weekends free. Speaking with a lot of teachers, they probably spend realistically half a day to 3/4 of a day, maybe on a weekend, but whether it's like a Friday or Saturday or so even Sunday night, something like that, it's a few hours just prepping for the Monday to be ready. And then the rest of the time to kind of just wind down. It's like I said earlier, it's peaks and troughs. But if I look at my work-life balance to what it was compared to what it now is significantly better. But don't be under illusion that there's times when it is quite tough.
Yeah, definitely. That's great. Thank you. I just wanted to jump in as well with a question here from Lisa, because I think this will help clarify for some people that are also on the call. So it's about applying to Now Teach. So the question is, just to confirm, do we apply to you via eligibility check consultation, or are we required to apply via the DFE Get Into Teaching website as well? So no, you do not apply for us via the Get Into Teaching website. You just come straight through to us. So that eligibility check and that consultation is basically your way of sort of applying with us. It's kind of it's not supposed to be kind of an arduous, like very difficult application process, because we do really want to support people who are career changers and that we're the right fit for. That eligibility check and that consultation is all about checking whether we're kind of the right people to be supporting you. It's not about whether you are going to be a good teacher or not. That's not necessarily really what we're looking at. It's we have our funding specifically to support career changes, and we just have a criteria that we have to meet. So that's what that's about. Yes, please do your eligibility check, and somebody will get in contact with you. Some of you might have already kind of filled in your expression of interest on the website. That's fine. If you've done that very recently, sort of like in the last day or so, you might still be waiting for on a callback from us, which you will get very shortly, and obviously everybody will get a call following this webinar as well, so you'll have a chance to kind of do that then. So you won't be able to find us on DFE Apply, so that's just for training providers, and we are not doing kind of we're not a training provider, we are a support network first and foremost. So back to you, Matt. Had a question from Andrew. So I don't know if this is going to be a tricky one or not, but Matt, what do you find the hardest part of the job?
Yeah, I've just read that. I thought that's a very okay. Very good question. Right. Hard thing I personally find about my job is one thing about, even on physics, what you'll find with science is schools do like you to teach all sciences. So, for example, I teach biology, chemistry, and physics. And although it's a bit harder initially, in the end, I think it'd be much better because you make them much more around the individual. So one thing I do find hard is when you plan a lesson, I'm going to teach a particular topic. And during that lesson, the first casualty is always the plan. So either the kids are doing really well and we need to advance it more, or it's not going so well and we need to or it might just take a little detour in direction as an opportunity. Where my subject knowledge isn't as strong, and I'll be honest with my biology, because it's my weakest area, I do find that quite hard. Where if you do physics, or I'm getting a chemistry now, I can do a lesson and I'll get a curveball. I can take it wherever it needs to go quite comfortably off the cuff. Where with biology, I'm struggling, and that will just mature and develop over time. And one of the big things that I spoke with my mentors about is don't worry about it. It's perfectly natural. And it still happens to the teacher who's been teaching 13, 15 years. So it just happens over time. So don't worry about that. Most people probably expect me to say behavior. I've been quite good with behavior. We did a fantastic behavior training event not about a couple of months ago. With a lot of really good insights with that through Now Teach. I think with behaviour, I think if you follow the policies and get your own confidence, you'll find that that's not too much of a challenge. And believe it or not, this is a really weird thing. Kids respond well to good behaviour management. It's when you don't do behaviour management, it just goes car crash. And you almost expect good behaviour management from you. It's kind of weird, really. But yeah, the hardest thing for me was the diversity in the subject knowledge to a weaker area.
That's great, thank you very much. Steph, I'm gonna ask of you as well about how Now Teach will help prepare the new cohort during the summer.
Yeah, absolutely. So you might have heard us talk a little bit about our annual conference, which is in July this year. It's on the 8th of July. So anybody joining us for the 2023 cohort will be invited along to that event, and it's a full day event in London where you have the opportunity to meet other Now teachers from the network, right from the first cohort in 2017 through to Matt's cohort in 2022, who are currently training. And it's a really nice opportunity to kind of kickstart your training and to really get excited about what you've decided to do. So there'll be guest speakers there. There'll be some sessions that you can kind of select for yourself and tailor your own day this year and choose what you really want to find out. And then there'll be lots of kind of roundtable discussions and opportunities for you to sit down with people who are at lots of different stages but have done a very similar thing to you, and really just kind of start to calm some of those nerves, but also ramp up that excitement ready for September. So there's a social at the end of that, but the day is very much structured so that you'll be able to talk to lots of different people on the day. Before that, you'll kind of go through a bit of a handover. So you'll work with our career change consultants, and then once you have had an offer made and got to the point of moving over to programme, you'll get handed over and you'll meet your programme manager during the summer. And at that point, we'll have a bit of an onboarding call. It'll be a chance for us to get to know each other, find out if you've got concerns and if there's support that we can put in place straight away. At that point, a lot of people are usually doing kind of subject knowledge enhancements. And so we'll kind of chat about how those are going and maybe connect you with people who are doing SKEs in the same subject so that you can straight away kind of have people to talk to about that. But really it'll kind of be slightly different for everyone, but welcoming you, getting to know you, starting that relationship so that if you do get to that point, whether it's in September or February or May, where you think I really need to talk to someone, that you're not picking up the phone to a stranger. It's somebody that you've already built a relationship with and feel like you can phone up and say whatever you need to say at that point. So yeah, summer is very much about getting to know each other and getting to know the network.
That's great. Matt, did you go to conference? I don't know if you've got anything to add on that and how you found it.
Yes, I went to the conference last year. I thought it was brilliant. Just really good to meet a lot of people. Just people about to start the journey, but people who've also been through it as well. Touch base with similar subjects as well as slightly different subjects. And you know, some of the guest speakers that I thought were absolutely superb. And we've seen that through a lot of the webinars through the years, but that's really good.
Perfect, thank you. And I've also been asked by Philip, are there any disadvantages to doing a course which doesn't offer a PGCE? So the one that does jump to mind is, so the answer is it depends, like with so many of these things. So if you have a PGCE, you're much more likely to be able to teach abroad, and that's the main one. And for lots of career changes, if they do go down the PGCE route, that is why, because they want to be able to teach abroad in future, or kind of that's kind of in their plan. But apart from that, no, not really. If you want to kind of stay in the UK, lots of people just go back down the QTS route these days, and that's absolutely fine. They will just feel a bit different whilst you're doing the qualification. If you absolutely kind of love university based work and all of that kind of thing, your essays and stuff, then maybe a PGCE is more for you. But if not, then a QTS is absolutely fine, and that will not be a kind of barrier to entry for you. So I am going to just ask like one last question. I think that's what we've got time for. So Steph, I'm going to come back to you. So what do you think are kind of the biggest benefits of being able to career change specifically with Now Teach? What are kind of, if you were to pick kind of like one or two of the kind of big benefits, what do you think they would be?
I think the thing that we hear the most is definitely about the third party voice. So I think although most of the things that people speak to us about, they could speak to their school or their training provider about, sometimes it's just good to have that distance, because they're the people that are assessing you and that are effectively going to recommend you for QTS or not at the end of the year. And so I think there are certain things that you kind of want to get advice on, or that you want to empty your head of, that actually you could speak to your school or training provider, and I'm sure it would be absolutely fine. But having a third party that just has that distance just allows you to have those very open conversations, and knowing as well that those conversations can then kind of lead to whatever support it is, whether it's coaching, whether it's that we kind of put you in touch with another Now teacher, or that if you need something else at the end of that call, that there's always kind of a next step that we can take.
Brilliant, thank you. And Matt, what is the kind of biggest thing you've learned, do you think, so far? I've saved a tough question till last.
I'll tell you what I'm going to say is, don't underestimate the value of yourselves for what you've learned in the industry. You think of it as you're starting a new job. There are skills you'll need, which you'll develop, which your training supporters in your university and Now Teach will help you develop. But you've got an abundance of skills that I would say you can't teach, that you acquired over time. And don't never underestimate that. And they are as valuable, more valuable to the role you're doing. That's what really makes it, you're able to make a difference, not just to what you're about to do, but to the children's lives and everything. So yeah, the biggest thing I've learned is, as a career changer, don't undersell yourself.
Thank you very much. Okay, so I think I'm going to need to wrap up now, because we are coming quite close to time. So in a second, you'll see a poll pop up on your screen. So if you could complete that whilst I just say the last couple of bits. So I'll just reiterate, our specialist team really are here to help. We're going to follow up with everyone with a phone call following this webinar. So if you do have any further questions, or we didn't manage to get to your question, do ask those and have them ready. We've got some extensive knowledge in the team specialists, so you can speak to them and also fill out our registration form on the website, and we can go from there. And the very last thing to say is thank you so much for joining us. We really hope that you found it informative, and I'm sure it was great to hear from Steph and also Matt, whose first-hand experience is so invaluable. So I'll say thank you very much and have a good rest of your evening.